How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at The Strangers Chapter 3. This just came out February 6, 2026, and was directed once again by Renny Harlin. The movie stars Madeline Petsch, Gabriel Basso, and Richard Brake. This is the fifth Strangers movie overall, and is the third and final piece in the Strangers reboot trilogy. And oh my gosh, where do I even begin with this movie? Okay, start at the beginning, the base concept for you guys if you don't know it, with the whole new Strangers trilogy thing. Basically, this trilogy is its own timeline. The first movie is a remake of the original Strangers, and the subsequent two movies take place immediately after with the same characters. So it all forms one big story. And that was the pitch, is like, we have a big story to tell. All three movies go together, and they shot them back to back, so even when the first two are very poorly received, we were gonna get all three of them anyway. And yeah, boy, were they pretty poorly received. The first one is just the original Strangers, but worse, and I was like, okay, you wanted to use the character from part one, but couldn't get the actress back, and you wanted to establish a new continuity. It wasn't great, but I get why they did it. And then you got to part two, and my first thought was, okay, we're in uncharted territory, show me what this new story is going to be. And then part two is mainly filler. As far as like what they actually did and wanted to tell you was a little bit with some flashbacks and then what happens right at the very end. But most of the movie is just she's awake and the strangers are still chasing her again. Nothing happened, and it felt like they only made part two because they didn't want to do a duology. You have to do a trilogy, right? So yeah, part two is mostly filler. But I was like, okay, part three, they've been building up. This is what they wanted to do. This is the big finale. This is the movie they had in mind. And I thought, okay, I'm in it so far. I love the original continuity. At this point, maybe it's just morbid curiosity, but I had a little bit of cautious hope that maybe part 3 would be like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. No, it's actually kind of impressive with how bad the first movie was received that we'd managed to take a step down every time, and part 3 is honestly the worst. It built up like there were going to be big twists and surprises, but like really within the first act of the movie, it answers them in the most expected and underwhelming way possible, and everything in this movie just kind of is what it is with nothing more beyond that. The only time this movie actually surprised me was with how underwhelming they managed to be. There are plot lines and there are characters that don't really go anywhere and just kinda stop. And there were so many moments in this movie, including the very end of it, that I was like, okay, there's gotta be more to it than that, right? You're gonna give me something more, right? That can't be all that you were going for. But no, it was. They made this movie seem like it was going to be the big finale that we had to work to get to, but the movie's basically just they're dragging the main girl along and trying to force her into the group, and there's not much to it outside of that. You could have just truncated Chapter 2 into the prologue for this movie, and we could have skipped that, and you could have just made the main girl a completely different character, and then we would have been able to skip the beginning. Honestly, if we did that, it would have still been a shockingly underwhelming movie, but it wouldn't have had this strange big build-up to literally next to no payoff. Honestly, if this series didn't start a few years ago, I would have said this movie felt like it was written by AI, because boy, this is just dumb. I do want to talk a bit more about it, but I know with new movies, people are sensitive to spoilers, so from here on out I want to say, I'll be focusing primarily on setup. I'll try to avoid the ending so no major spoilers, but two things I want to talk about is the stuff we learn within the first act. This movie tells you way too much, and it's honestly underwhelming and not a surprise really, but if I say anything big, just know that that's stuff that happens at the beginning, and I will also have to talk about how Strangers Chapter 2 ends. So no major spoilers, but kind of a light warning. From here on out, let's do a deeper dive. So if you guys remember how Chapter 2 ended, basically the pinup girl died, and the Scarecrow Man was really upset about it. The two characters meet each other in a church, and yeah, right at the beginning of this movie, Scarecrow's just talking to her without his mask on, and it's just the guy that everyone expected it would be. Honestly, I was hoping it wouldn't be him, because it was so incredibly obvious, but it's not even a big reveal in this movie. He's just there, out of mask, just having a little chat. And quick side note, I hate this reveal because when the stranger has his mask on, he's stoic, he's threatening. But when he has his mask off, he's just kind of sad and mopey. It's like one of the worst villain reveals ever. But whatever, this guy's in the church and they kind of say, you killed my girlfriend, but I killed your fiance. We're 1-to-1 now. Just get out of here and let's let bygones be bygones. Well, she gets in the car with Richard Brake to leave. She flips out, steals the car, and then decides to not look at the road and crash into a tree. Don't you just love when characters make terrible decisions? If she had just paid attention to the road, the movie would have been over in about 20 minutes. But whatever. Off-screen and with absolutely no explanation, the stranger abruptly changes his mind from just go to I'm going to kidnap you and force you to be a part of my crimes. And that's all the movie is them putting the mask on her, trying to make her, like, get on board with this, and just dragging her around with them as they wreak a little bit more havoc. We didn't need 2 movies to build up to this concept. That's all this one is. Come with us as we kill people and eventually try to fight it. There is a little bit more. Obviously, we have the whole backstory thing, which again is just vomited out right at the beginning in the least surprising way possible. We had known from the last chapter that the setup was Scarecrow was a kid at one point, fell in love with a crazy girl who wanted to kill people, and he said, okay, let's do that, and now they kill people. And they had all this stuff with like the church might be doing something, or the townspeople might be doing something, and it hinted at a big overarching conspiracy, and all it is that Richard Brake is Scarecrow's father and he's letting him do this. That's it. There's no mystery. Again, shockingly simple and shockingly underwhelming. The one thing that's almost a twist, and it's stupid, is where the word the strangers comes from. You see, their one rule is they can only kill people from out of town. Strangers. So the whole reason these movies are called The Strangers is not the name for the killers, but the name for the victims. And that's flippin' dumb. They act like it's this big revelation. It's in the text at the beginning, but it's like, okay, whatever, now what do we call the killers in this movie? I hate it when they think they're onto something big and you're like, really, we're doing that? That's stupid. But whatever. There is another big part with this movie where her sister finally comes to town, and it's the sister, her husband, and this detective they hire, and you think, okay, maybe we're gonna get something out of this. But no, the sister's plot really doesn't amount to much. I mean, there's a little bit there, but honestly not much. Just trying to run around town, talk to people who don't want to say anything, and eventually maybe find her. But the biggest thing is the detective. They set him up like he's this cool detective character. He's gonna do something. He's gonna be a fun protagonist. But then when you get to the end, you're like, he didn't really do much of anything, did he? It was such a shockingly huge waste. Like, when you look at where his story winds up, you're like, that was it? We didn't want to do more with that? And there's another thing, like with the baby doll character. They had wrote a love story with Scarecrow and Pinup, but the first movie said there was a third one, and we do get a sort of like side story about like her origin, which is ironically the coolest part of the movie, because they kind of just do it to explain her, but then after that they clearly don't know what to do with this character or how to have any big payoff or like part for her in the story. And again, it's another underwhelming element. And same with Richard Brake. He could have panned out to be something better. He's a great actor, and he does get more stuff to do in this movie than he did the past two, but it's another super underwhelming moment with him. And then you get dumb stuff like him killing someone he really didn't have to and literally dragging their body through the streets in broad daylight, and no one even questions it. Like, the sister and her team actually see it. It's in a body bag, and they go, that's too big to be your sister, so there's no problem here. No problem that Richard Brake is dragging a body through the street. Yeah, you see how this movie can be frustrating. But overall, like I said, the movie is just, hey, come with us, maybe you'll join our side. A bunch of BS pseudo-philosophy about, oh, we're not so different, you and I, even though they really aren't the same at all. And then, like, everything they were building up to and all the side characters and a whole lot of the story just amounts to shockingly little. Every time in this franchise, I kept thinking, okay, surely the next one's going to be better, and it's so strange how badly this series fumbled the ball at the ending. I really like the original Strangers timeline. Part 1 is obviously a classic, and Pray at Night is super underrated, and I was so happy that we were gonna get 3 more movies with these really cool characters who I love to see on screen. But, I don't know, maybe at this point, maybe the real big kill is the franchise itself, because honestly, it's going to take a while before these movies can come back, but I would love to see another good Strangers movie, but this whole thing has just been so shockingly underwhelming. Whatever. When these came out, they were like, oh, it's really one big movie, and eventually you'll get to see them all at once? Maybe someday I'll do a trilogy marathon and, I don't know, just try to analyze them again with fresh eyes, but these are just bad, and I'm sorry that's all I have to say, but yeah, it didn't work. But I'd be curious what you guys thought of these movies, so feel free to leave those in the comments down below. Anyway though, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you, you really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should probably be my 2026 movies playlist where you can see me review Primate and 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Playlist here. Have a good day now.